range. And then 24 hours later, Alexa Filippo, she went on ESPN and she was like, well, the players still aren't happy with that. And a lot of people are like, wait, why? What's going on? Like 1.1 million, that's a huge increase, because if you guys remember, the maximum salary in the WNBA for this past season was around 220,000. So obviously that's a massive increase if the max is going to go to 1.1 million. So fans were confused on that. And then
the WNBA is in absolute chaos right now, and what just leaked to the public is nothing short of catastrophic. We're talking about a $3 billion debt that nobody saw coming, commissioner who reportedly walked out of a heated meeting, and a league that's been hiding the truth from fans for years. This isn't just another contract dispute or salary negotiation gone wrong. This is the potential collapse of an entire professional sports league, and it's all unraveling in real time.
The $1 million offer isn't what it seems, and the 1.1 million wouldn't be their base salary. The base salary would still be that 850,000 number, and then you could get up to 1.1 million if you reach the different bonuses throughout the season. And honestly, you guys, these details do not matter. This does not matter. What has transpired over this last 72 hours?
Just 2 minutes ago, sources confirmed what many have suspected, but nobody wanted to believe. The financial foundation of the WNBA is crumbling, and the people in charge have been scrambling behind closed doors, desperately trying to keep this disaster under wraps. But the truth always finds a way out, doesn't it? And now that it's public, the fallout is going to be absolutely devastating. Let's take this from the top, because the story behind this $3 billion nightmare is far more twisted than anyone could have imagined. For months, the WNBA has been in intense negotiation.
So much? This is the same kind of stuff that has been going on for the past 6 months. Clearly, both sides are trying to gain the approval of the public's opinion. They're trying to sway how the public feels about what's going on in the CBA negotiations. So was the WNBA lying and kind of boosting their story by saying that we're going to give the players 1.1 max salary? Sure, maybe. Or was the $1.1 million max salary increase falsely reported? Maybe they didn't report it properly and they said oh, it's going to be 1.1, but they didn't put in the caveats of what that actually means. And then on the other side,
over a new collective bargaining agreement. Players have been demanding higher salaries, better revenue sharing, and conditions that reflect what they believe is their true market value. The league, on the other hand, has been pushing back, offering deals that look good on paper, but contain hidden caveats and performance-based incentives that make those big numbers far less guaranteed than they appear. It's been a public relations disaster from day one, with both sides leaking information to the media, trying to win over fans and sway public opinion in their favor. But what nobody realized is that this entire negotiation has been built on
everything from all sides. It doesn't change anything. It seems like they're at the exact same point in the negotiations, and I have no clue who to trust. And I don't trust anyone. To be honest, I do not trust what anyone is saying. And my mind is just just tell me if there's going to be a season next year. And I feel like that's the opinion of
a lie. Behind the scenes, the WNBA has been hemorrhaging money at an alarming rate. We're not just talking about the typical operating losses that people have grown accustomed to hearing about. This is something far worse. According to leaked financial documents that just surfaced, the league has accumulated nearly $3 billion in debt over the past decade, a number so staggering that it makes the recent salary disputes look like pocket change. How does a professional sports league rack up that kind of debt? Where did all that money go? And more importantly, why has nobody been talking about this until now? The answer is both simple and infuriating. The WNBA has been operating on borrowed time and borrowed money, banking on the hope that future growth would eventually...
They're watching the NBA, they're watching college basketball, and they're basically saying, go ahead, do your thing. You guys can argue and figure it out or don't figure it out. Just kind of let me know if there's going to be a season. And that's just kind of how I feel at this point in time. I think it would be a waste of my time to share with you guys the details that are being shared, because I don't know if any of it's true. And we don't know what the WNBA players want. The WNBA players have never once come out and said, we want this max salary, we want this.
Bail them out of their financial hole. They've been investing heavily in expansion teams, marketing campaigns, arena upgrades, and player salaries, all while bringing in revenue that doesn't even come close to covering those expenses. The NBA has been subsidizing the league for years, essentially keeping it alive through cash infusions and shared resources. But even that support has its limits, and sources are now saying that the NBA ownership group is growing increasingly frustrated with the lack of return on their investment. The $3 billion debt isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It represents years of reckless spending, overpromising, and a fundamental misunderstanding of what it takes.
50% of the revenue sharing, just like the NBA has. So that seems to be the number. I don't think there's any way that they get that, especially during this CBA. And I also think that there's certain camps right now with WNBA fans. I feel like there's a camp who believes that the WNBA hasn't profited in forever, and they think the women are asking for too much, and they're just always going to kind of side with the WNBA and be like, the players need
a sustainable professional sports league. And here's where it gets even more explosive. The WNBA commissioner, who has been the face of the league throughout these turbulent negotiations, reportedly walked out of a high-stakes meeting just hours ago. According to multiple insiders, the meeting was supposed to be a closed-door emergency session with team owners, NBA executives, and key financial advisors. The purpose was to address the leaked debt numbers and come up with a unified strategy for damage control. But instead of productive conversation, the room apparently erupted into shouting matches, finger-pointing, and accusations.
In the WNBA PA, or the people who are part of that committee, they are now all signed to one of these off-season leagues, and some of these leagues that could rival the WNBA. I will just say this. I don't think any of these off-season leagues succeed in the long run, like past the next few years, if the WNBA is not a thing. The players who are playing in these off-season leagues, the salaries that they're getting in these off-season leagues, the worth
about who knew what and when. The commissioner, allegedly overwhelmed by the pressure and the severity of the situation, left the meeting without explanation, leaving everyone else in stunned silence. Think about what that means for a second. The person who's supposed to be steering this ship just abandoned the wheel in the middle of a storm. This isn't some minor disagreement over contract language or media rights. This is the leader of the league walking away when things got too hot to handle. And if that doesn't tell you how dire the situation really is, nothing will. The optics alone are devastating. Fans are going to see this as confirmation that the league is in free fall. Players
play in the WNBA. And I do think if the WNBA ceases to exist, or if they skip a season, like, all this momentum is why the players are saying that they deserve more and they want their revenue share to go up as the years continue. Like, as the league grows, the WNBA wants their revenue share to also grow with the league so that they are earning money. But all of that comes off the back of the last two seasons.
They're going to lose whatever trust they had left in leadership. And potential investors or sponsors are going to run for the hills the moment they see that the person in charge couldn't even stay in the room when the hard questions started getting asked. But let's dig deeper into this debt, because the numbers tell a story that's been deliberately kept out of the spotlight. $3 billion doesn't just appear overnight. This has been building for years, masked by optimistic press releases about record attendance and rising viewership. And yes, there have been legitimate success stories. The past two seasons saw unprecedented growth, largely fueled by
all of that. And I've been one who has said this from the beginning. If you halt all of that and for some reason lock out this season or strike this season, I think you lose all of your leverage if that happens. And I do think if the WNBA didn't happen and Project B ended up being, like, Project B is completely different from the WNBA. They're playing in 2-week tournaments and traveling around, and it also
rival of generational talents like Caitlin Clark and the ongoing rivalry with Angel Reese. Ratings went up, ticket sales improved, and merchandise flew off the shelves. The league finally had something resembling mainstream momentum. But here's the brutal truth that nobody wanted to acknowledge. Even with all that growth, the WNBA still wasn't making money. They were just losing it at a slightly slower rate. Every new team that joined the league required massive upfront investment. New arenas needed to be built or renovated. Marketing budgets had to be expanded to reach
spectacle of it all and making it a really cool show and entertainment value and the streaming platform. And then Unrivaled obviously is 3v3. They would have to change to 5v5. They would have to get a completely different setup and everything. They play on a shortened court. Like, it's not true basketball. Like, AU is the closest thing to true basketball, and that league is hanging
new audiences. Players' salaries had to be increased to remain competitive and keep talent from fleeing to overseas leagues or alternative domestic competition. All of that costs money, enormous amounts of it, and the revenue simply wasn't there to support it. Ticket sales, even at their peak, don't come come close to covering operational costs. Broadcasting deals, while improving, are still a fraction of what other professional sports leagues command. Sponsorships are growing, but not fast enough to offset the deficit. The math just doesn't work, and it never has. And this brings us to the players and their demands, which suddenly look very different in light of these financial revelations. The players have been pushing for 50% revenue sharing, matching what NBA players receive. On the surface,
the momentum going and keep the WNBA going because they're also under the NBA umbrella. And a lot of people have argued like the NBA shouldn't be owning 50% of the league, but the NBA also has the ability to truly help the WNBA as well. So when I was thinking about this and the negotiations and things that I've done for certain jobs in my career, there is kind of two ways that you can go about it where it's a career builder. And, maybe there's something in the CBA. If the CBA...
That sounds fair and reasonable. After all, they're the ones on the court putting in the work and generating the product that fans pay to see. But 50% of what exactly? If the league is $3 billion in debt and still operating at a massive loss, what revenue is there to share? You can't divide money that doesn't exist. The players have been negotiating as if the WNBA is sitting on a pile of cash that greedy owners are hoarding. But the reality is far grimmer. There's no pile of cash. There's only debt, mounting losses, and a future that's looking increasingly uncertain. Now, some people are going to argue that the players didn't know about the true financial state of the league, that they were kept in the dark just like everyone else. And maybe that's true, but it also raises serious questions about transparency and trust. How can you negotiate in good faith when one side is withholding critical information about the actual financial health of the organization? The players' union has every right to be furious if they've been operating under false assumptions about what the league can actually afford, but at the same time demanding unrealistic compensation packages when the league is already drowning in debt is a recipe for disaster. There's no winner in this scenario. The players lose if the league folds. The owners lose their investment. The fans lose the sport they love. And the broader conversation about equity in professional sports takes a massive step backward. Let's talk about the alternative leagues for a moment because they're playing a much bigger role in this crisis than most people realize. Unrivaled, Project B, Athletes Unlimited, these new competitions have been positioning themselves as viable alternatives to the WNBA. They're offering competitive salaries, shorter seasons, and formats that prioritize entertainment and spectacle. Several of the WNBA's biggest stars have already signed on to play in these leagues during the offseason, and some are starting to wonder if they even need the WNBA at all. But here's the uncomfortable truth. These alternative leagues only exist because the WNBA built the platform that made these players famous in the first place. Breanna Stewart can command $250,000 from Unrivaled because she's a WNBA champion and MVP. The Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark rivalry that drives so much interest started in the WNBA. Without that foundation, these alternative leagues are just expensive exhibitions with no real audience or cultural relevance. But if the WNBA collapses under the weight of this debt, what happens to that foundation? Do the alternative leagues have the infrastructure and resources to step in and become the new premier destination for women's basketball? Probably not. Unrivaled is a 3-on-3 tournament on a shortened court. Project B is focused on 2-on-2 events with heavy emphasis on entertainment value over pure basketball. Athletes Unlimited has struggled to attract big names and maintain consistent viewership. None of them are trying to be a full 5-on-5 full season replacement for what the WNBA offers. They're supplementary income streams, not substitutes. And if the WNBA goes away, the entire ecosystem that supports women's professional basketball in America could crumble with it. The timing of this leak couldn't be worse. We're in the middle of the offseason when casual fans have already moved on to football, the NBA, and college basketball. The hardcore fans who are still paying attention have already picked their sides in this contract dispute. Some believe the players are asking for too much given the league's financial realities. Others believe the players deserve every penny they can get and that the owners should find a way to make it work. Neither group is likely to change their opinion based on new debt numbers. And the casual fans, the ones who tuned in to watch Caitlin Clark's rookie season and might come back if there's another exciting storyline, they're not following the ins and outs of collective bargaining negotiation. They just want to know if there's going to be a season to watch. And right now, the answer to that question is looking more and more uncertain. Here's what makes the situation so uniquely frustrating. The WNBA was finally gaining real momentum. After decades of struggling for attention and legitimacy, reality. The league had found its moment. Young stars were emerging. Rivalries were developing. Media coverage was increasing. The product on the court was better than it had ever been. And then, just as everything seemed to be coming together, financial reality comes crashing down like a ton of bricks. It's like watching someone climb a mountain for years, finally reach the summit, and then realize the ground beneath them is about to give way. All that progress, all that hard work, all those gains in visibility and respect could be wiped out in an instant if this debt crisis isn't managed properly. And let's be honest about what happens if there's no season next year. The players lose a year of their prime earning potential and career development. The fans lose access to the sport they've been supporting and championing. The momentum that took so long to build evaporates overnight. Media narratives shift from growth and progress to failure and collapse. Sponsors pull back or walk away entirely. The casual audience that just started paying attention moves on to something else and never comes back. The alternative leagues, rather than growing into legitimate competitors, fade away because they lose the WNBA platform that gave their players relevance in the first place. An entire conversation about women's sports and equity in professional athletics takes a devastating blow that could set things back by decades. The leaked $3 billion debt is a nightmare scenario, but it's also a wake-up call. For years, the WNBA has been operating on hope and external subsidies rather than sound business fundamentals. They've been spending money they don't have, banking on future growth that may or may not materialize, and avoiding the hard conversations about what it actually takes to run a profitable professional sports league. The players have been demanding compensation that reflects their perceived value without fully understanding the financial constraints of the organization. The owners have been trying to maintain appearances while quietly panicking about mounting losses. And the commissioner, who just walked out of that emergency meeting, has been caught in the middle, trying to please everyone while the walls close in from all sides. So where do we go from here? Honestly, nobody knows. The leak of this debt information changes everything. Negotiations that were already contentious and drawn out are now going to become even more complicated. Players are going to demand answers about why they weren't told the truth about the league's finances. Owners are going to have to decide whether they're willing to keep pouring money into a league that shows no signs of profitability. The NBA, which has been subsidizing the WNBA for years, will have to determine if continued support is worth the investment or if it's time to cut their losses. And the fans, the ones who've been loyal through all the ups and downs, are going to have to grapple with the very real possibility that the league they love might not survive. The commissioner walking out of that meeting is symbolic of the larger crisis facing the WNBA right now. There's nowhere left to hide. The truth is out. The debt is public, and everyone involved is going to have to face some extremely uncomfortable realities about what this league actually is versus what everyone hoped it could be. The next few weeks are going to be absolutely critical. If a deal can be reached, if the financial situation can be stabilized, if leadership can step up and provide a clear path forward, maybe the WNBA survives this. But if egos get in the way, if trust continues to erode, if the money simply isn't there to keep the lights on, we could be witnessing the beginning of the end for women's professional basketball as we know it. And that would be a tragedy, not just for the players and fans, but for everyone who's been fighting for equity and opportunity in sports. The clock is ticking, the pressure is mounting, and right now, nobody seems to have the answers.